Hi, my name is Daniel Mawson, and I'm really glad you're joining us today in Hope and Healing, a place where we can come together and safely talk about some of the burdens, insecurities, and craziness of the world through a biblical worldview. Now, for the next several weeks, we're going to be talking about church hurt. It's a thing that's affected a ton of people, both inside and outside the church. And here with me today to talk about it is Jason Crute. He's the senior pastor at our church. And wow, Jason, thank you so much for talking to me about this topic. It's such a sensitive topic for so many people.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to get into this, a little nervous.
Yes.
But as we approach it, can we just try to define today, what is church hurt?
Again, that's such a huge topic because it's there, but it's hard to define because it could be so broad to say anything is church hurt. Anyone can declare it as something, and sometimes I would even correlate to go, it's like when you talk to your 3-year-old and they say that's unfair, and you're like, well, I don't always know if I can classify that.
I don't know what you're talking about exactly.
But when you zoom down, it could be specifically a lot of things. It could be sinful people in leadership who are doing things that are wrong, that are hurting the body. It could be people in the body who just have a personality conflict, and it happens to be at church, but the same personality conflict could happen if they were neighbors. And so because it happened at church, they declare it church hurt. And it could be individuals who want to hold on to a sinful behavior, and maybe the church is doing everything right by going, this is sinful and we have to break from this. And they're going, well, since you can't accept my sin, this is hurt. So it can run this huge gauntlet of things.
It can. And that kind of makes it hard to put a finger on exactly what we're talking about. And this episode isn't going to really cover everything. We have a lot of episodes to come for this, and we're going to cover as much as we can. But I like how you talked about kids' response, because sometimes when my kid is complaining about something, the problem isn't really anything around him at all. It's really just him. Right. So that kind of begs the question, as broad as it is and as much as people can talk about it, is church hurt really, is it legitimate, I guess is the thing.
Right.
Because sometimes my kids are not super legitimate in the things they're complaining about, right?
Yeah, and that's an honest question. And so to start, yes, church hurt is legitimate. For us to say we've made the church for 2,000 years and there's never been a sinful leader would be an absolutely ridiculous statement.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So sometimes there is deliberate hurt caused by people who might be in leadership at church because of their behavior, their decision, their sin patterns, whatever the list is, that hurt the body. It's
wolves in sheep's clothing.
Right, wolves, or sometimes a shepherd who beat the sheep, and you're like, you shouldn't be beating the sheep. So yes, church hurt is legitimate. The problem in what we're trying to point to is there's not one catch-all that you just say, this is the only issue, because we're going to have to wrestle through. And that's really, I think, what this series is geared towards, is how do we point to all of the options that it could be without promising a solution to any of them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're not trying to really, this isn't the come and we're going to fix your problem, video series, right? Like, I would love to be that for people, but, we're going to dig ourselves a hole if we try to solve all the problems.
Yeah. And sometimes even to solve a problem, counselors would say this, the first thing you have to do is identify and agree on the problem.
Yeah.
So we can't just say church hurt in general. Well, we have to start zooming down in to say, like, what is the problem that might have affected people?
Yeah, what is the problem and why should I care, right? And I think for us in the church, that can be kind of a tricky question, not one that we would ever really vocalize, but I think there's an attitude sometimes in the church, because if we're here, you and I, we serve on staff at churches, we are clearly in the ecosystem, right?
Yes.
Like, if we've been hurt by a church, it hasn't brought us out of it. For us, not only as leaders, but also like as church members, we can sometimes have a maybe unspoken attitude of, well, they just need to get over it, right? Like, it's really just their problem. I don't really have anything to input, into that. I can't really speak into that. So why should we, as church members, as people in the church ecosystem or atmosphere, why should we care about that? And I know that seems kind of callous to say.
Well, it's a legitimate question, because any of us could get caught up in, well, this is what I prefer. But I would say the first and the biggest thing is because Christ's name is at stake. And so we should care because we're trying our best to honor Christ. I think Romans 12 beginning of that, I think, is when it talks about, I appeal to you, brothers, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. And so if people are being hurt, my call is to do the best I can to offer my resources to help heal that. So I'd say the biggest thing is that Christ's name is at stake. The secondary or the quick follow-up to that, and again, Christ is a big deal, but the second follow-up is I'd be callous if I was indifferent to it. You know,
Absolutely.
and if you pull this out of church hurt, could you imagine if you married a spouse who could care less about whether you were hurt? Like I would be callous towards my wife if she's like, this is something that is hurting me or bothering me or something that is really breaking our fellowship, and I just go, well, get over it. Who cares?
Over it. Right. Absolutely.
You know?
That's like so unloving to say it that way. Right. And we don't mean it. I think what it is, we just don't think about it. Right. It's not, once they're kind of out of sight, they're out of mind. We're not really worrying about their problems. We're focusing on us. And we get into that trap so much in the church. We just focus on us to our detriment. And, John says, and Jesus says that the world will know us by our love for one another.
Right.
And if somebody wanders, then Jesus' first reaction is to go get them. And so why shouldn't our first reaction be to, love them back in?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And I was going to say, this will dance a lot of things because this whole series is trying to go, there's the difference between, ideal situation, how do we love them back in? But we're also not ignorant to the fact of there's wolves in sheep's clothing, and the wolves just want to start the distraction of, well, this is what you aren't, or this is how you've not met, or and so it'll always be that weird balance of, I'd love for people, if they were truly hurt, and maybe the goal of this series is we want people to enter dialogue that we could have a back and forth to say, how can we help you and help the healing process?
Yes.
We also will recognize throughout this series that the wolves out there are going to go, how do we make this a distraction to say, this is how, like, no honest dialogue. This is how I've been hurt, and so therefore let's kill the messenger.
Yeah, well, you're saying this. Well, what about this other thing? And I would personally, I'm a fixer at heart. I would love to address every single thing. And in counseling, we can do that. In one-on-one, we can address things and we can come at things head on specifically.
Right.
In this series, as much as I would love to address every single thing, we can't do that. And we're not trying to be the end-all solution to church hurt, right? Like, I can't heal someone's church hurt just by having a conversation with you about it. But what we can do is honestly dialogue between each other and really try to be not just honest, but like open-eyed, open-ended. What's happening here? Can we be part of the solution? This series is called Hope and Healing. It's not fix the problem, you dummy, right? We're not trying to do that.
Which might get more hits on YouTube.
Which might get more hits. Maybe we should title it differently.
Yeah.
But we're trying to extend hope. We're trying to maybe offer a part of healing. I hope that's why people are coming and listening to this, not looking for a way to, a gotcha, because there will be plenty of opportunities for gotcha through this series, if that's what you're looking for, because we're not going to fix everything here.
Yeah. And this, again, general concepts where we want to open the dialogue to point to, yes, the church is sometimes messed up or the church is sometimes at fault. But again, throughout this, to have people hopefully encouraged in hearing, hey, if I want to pursue this, they're open to individual conversations too.
Yeah. And it won't just be you and me throughout this, right? Like we'll talk to more people. We'll talk to a biblical counselor later in this series. We'll talk to people who have been church hurt like deeply and actually found their way back into church.
Right.
So I'm really excited for that conversation. That'll be really cool. But ultimately today, we just want to define it. I think we've done that. What is church hurt? Well, it's super broad.
Yes.
Right. But ultimately, I think we're saying that it can be anywhere from someone real sinful in leadership that is causing a lot of damage. We want to own up to that and identify where we see it. Church hurt can also be sinfulness in myself. Right. When I'm not ready to take the step that the church is going, or if something's happening that I'm personally not ready for, or it could be a nasty combination of the two. Right?
Yeah, or anything in between. Two highly opinionated people who maybe it's just folly and not even sin.
Maybe it's not even sin.
Right. Maybe it's just highly opinionated people who want to argue because they like arguing, and they've introduced folly that has led to hurt.
Absolutely. We can get so distracted in the church.
Right.
And the more we wander from Jesus, the more church hurt is likely to happen. So we're pretty good at wandering.
Yes.
And so we're prone to wander, you might say.
Yep.
And so church hurt is definitely something that people can come across. It's definitely real, definitely legitimate.
Yes.
Definitely
Yes.
something we want to take a look at in the coming weeks.
Yes.
So thank you so much for talking to me today,
Yeah.
Pastor Jason. And we will catch you guys next week. We're going to put one of these out every week, and we're excited, and we hope that you join us for the rest of it.